mayor who first achieved public office by being appointed, who is now considered untouchable by most of the political cognoscenti, unbeatable in the next election. We have the unusual added circumstances that he only holds this office because of a broken pledge not to hold the office. On top of that, this all happens in a situation where we have a housing crisis that is beyond what people have seen here in a good long time, if not ever. And obviously, if the status quo is permanent, little is going to change on that. So we asked tonight a couple of people who actually decided they would throw their hats in the ring. We asked another couple of people who have been long-term activists or observers of the situation, and we've even brought you in a special MC tonight. Rose Aguilar, who brought her own clutch, obviously, and doesn't need that much introduction, but Rose, as you may know, is published widely on a variety of subjects. 10 years ago, she wrote a book about traveling the red state. She's currently working on one on the problems, questions, issues of older women activists. She's been involved in KALW, which is where I suspect most of you know her, from since 2001. And been the moderator of It's Your Call since 2006. And with that, I give it to Rose and the timekeeper's there.
Thank you for the great memory. Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight. So Your Call airs every day from 10 to 11 a.m. on 91.7. It's a call-in show. And we've been focusing on a lot of the issues we're going to talk about tonight. We recently did shows about solutions to homelessness. We looked at how Utah is actually housing the homeless. What a concept. We also talked about global capital and all of the overseas investments that are coming into San Francisco. So you're getting these high rises downtown are being bought like that. And almost 80% of them are being bought by people overseas who are not living in them. I have a friend who actually works in one of these places. We are putting together shows about transportation. All of this housing is being built. How are people supposed to get around public transportation? We're going to do a show about boot camp for renters. There's a really great group that's doing these boot camps in cafes around the city, and they've been shocked at the level of participation. And they find that the #1 reason why people are getting evicted is because they don't know their rights. They're intimidated, they don't know what's happening, they leave willingly. This happened to my neighbor. And so it's information that everybody needs. And then I also want to do a show about land trusts, because that's something else that people need to learn about. So again, if you have a question, please grab a card and then write it down and we'll grab it, and I will do my best to ask the question. Our guests are going to speak for a bit, and then we're going to have a free-flowing Q&A. So first, I would like to introduce one of our guests, favorite guests. Tim Redmond is editor of 48hills.org. It's an online alternative daily newspaper. I hope you can check it out. If you want to know what's happening in your backyard, check out 48hills.org. Tim has been a political reporter in San Francisco for more than 30 years, much of that time at the Bay Guardian. Tim.
I only have 9 minutes, and I have 9 minutes, but I'll try to keep my remarks brief. Yeah, 10 minutes, okay. Thank you very much for coming and listening. We have a lot of things to... What? Louder.
Stand up.
Well, stand up. I can stand up and I can talk really loud. That isn't really a problem. Can everybody hear me now? Okay. All right. There's a lot of things that we need to talk about that are going on this fall. When I was asked to talk about the state of where progressives are in local politics, there's a million things I could say, but I spent most of the day today sorting out the fallout from what happened at the Democratic County Central Committee last night. I don't know if any of you were paying attention to this. This is the Democratic Party, the elected arm of the Democratic Party that's supposed to speak for the Democratic Party in San Francisco. Last night, they rejected a very moderate, mild, reasonable resolution about police reform and Black Lives Matter. Nothing radical, nothing, lock all the cops out. It was very, very modest. That was rejected by a vote of 13 to 10 at the Democratic Party of San Francisco and were placed with a resolution that congratulates the SFPD on its modern 21st century policing. Right? That's where we are right now. We got, in other words, a lot of work to do. Let me talk first a little bit about the mayor's race, because there are two candidates here who are going to be talking to you. We do not have an unopposed mayor's race, as the press normally says. It's not unopposed. There are people running for mayor. Two of them are sitting here, and they will talk to you about their platforms. And I'm really glad that you're both running. I mean, I believe that people ought to run for office, and that we shouldn't have this kind of non-democracy that we've seen way too often in mayoral races in San Francisco. But I think that my colleagues on the panel here are realizing, know full well, and are going to come to realize more in the next few months, how hard it is to mount a credible campaign for mayor that can actually win in a city where the major newspapers and TV stations are not going to cover you, where the only way that you can get that message out citywide is with a tremendous amount of money or with a tremendous amount of existing name recognition. It's interesting, I was thinking about this. The last time San Francisco elected a mayor who was not already a prominent public figure was 1967 when we elected Joe Alioto, who was an antitrust lawyer. Since then, all the mayors have been either a state senator, a supervisor, a state assembly member, in one case a police chief, and then in the case of Ed Lee, somebody who had been a city bureaucrat and who was appointed to the job first. Right? So we don't have a history in San Francisco of electing Mike Bloomberg's or Rahm Emanuel's, or like people who just come from the outside. And even though Bloomberg was a billionaire and used his own money, in San Francisco that hasn't worked. People who've decided they're going to run for mayor just because they're rich, that hasn't worked either. It tends to be people who are already pretty well known to a lot of the voters. And it's hard to get well known to a lot of the voters in San Francisco without a lot of money. So why are my colleagues over here, who I gather don't have $1 billion in the bank, and are struggling to run a grassroots campaign, why is that such a challenge, and why are they the only ones with the courage to enter this race? Well, that's a really important thing to understand about San Francisco right now. I have spoken to several people who were prominent elected officials who were thinking about running for mayor. And what they said to me was, we saw what Ron Conway did to David Campos. Why would we go through that? There's a level of fear out there. One of the things that the Ed Lee administration has done, and the tech influx, the tech oligarchy in San Francisco has done, is creating a climate of fear in the political community. Right? If you mess with the mayor, there's a guy who can raise $5 billion blinking an eye, who will do everything that he can to crush you. And he has made that clear. And when David Campos tried to run a campaign against the establishment for state assembly, they did that. They did every kind of nasty personal attack you can imagine. I lived in that district, some of you did. You saw the stuff that came out. And they were doing two things. One was they were saying, we want David Chu because he's more like us. The other thing they were saying is, don't dare mess with us, because this is what's going to happen to you. All right? So there's that climate of fear. Now, the mayor is considered very popular. If you look at the polls, everyone says the popular Ed Lee. But it's really important, and I hate to say, most of my colleagues in the political press, most political reporters don't know how to read a poll. Right? They look at the top line. Approval rating is high. Approval rating is down. Approval rating is up. You see all these White House polls, right? That's not what's going on. Right? Lots of people think the mayor is a good guy. And he's a decent guy. I know the mayor. I don't know him well, but I talk to him all the time. I know what he's a decent guy. Unlike some previous mayors that we've had who were very elitist snobs and wouldn't even, he talks to people, and he, used to drive a cheap car, and he lives in a little house in Glen Park, and people say, oh, Ed's a good guy. All right? I used to hear the same thing, by the way, about Ronald Reagan. He seems like a good guy. Ed may be a good guy, but when you ask people, do you like his policies? Do you like what is happening to the city right now? The numbers flip. The vast majority of people in San Francisco don't like what is happening in the city right now. So, what we need to do as progressives this fall and into the spring, and God knows somebody's got to run for Democratic County Central Committee so we can turn that messed up body around. For those people who believe in the Democratic Party, this is not a non-election. And the message I want to send you, this is not a non-election. There are very important things on the ballot, as well as the mayor's race, that will give you a chance to weigh in on what you think, not of Ed Lee the person, but of the policies that Ed Lee and his cronies have put in place in San Francisco. Right? It is known, how many of you are renters in this room? Most of everyone in this room. How many of you wake up in the middle of the night worrying about being evicted? Right? Most of you. Because that's the fear. That people live in fear. The politicians are in fear of Ron Conway. The rest of us are in fear that we're going to have to leave the city because we're going to be evicted. all right? And that's a very real, this is an unsettled city, right? People are not happy with the way things are going. They see great wealth being created, they don't see it being spread around, right? So how do we say something about that other than voting for one of these two candidates for mayor? Which, while I think is a fine idea, we all know the overwhelming likelihood is, given the world we live in right now, Edley is going to be re-elected the next mayor, all right? That's just the reality. So what do we do? Well, there's actually a referendum on the Edley administration going on this fall, and it is not the mayor's race, all right? I mean, it is the mayor's race too, but it's beyond the mayor's race, right? One of those issues is the Airbnb initiative, right? The Airbnb initiative is extremely important, in part because I believe in regulating the tech revolution. I believe that Uber and Lyft and Airbnb and all these other companies, these innovative companies, need to be regulated just like everybody else. They need to follow the same rules. And Airbnb is not. It is decimating housing stock all over the city. Tommi can talk better about that than I can. This is a real problem. It's not the person who a few nights a year rents out a spare bedroom to a visitor who they want to meet from another country, or somebody who, you know, during the summer goes away for 2 weeks. It's people who are buying up entire properties, Act evicting all the tenants and turning them into hotels, right? And it's happening all over the city. People don't like this. People don't like it in the Mission, but they also don't like it in West Port. And they don't like it in the Sunset. And they don't like it in West of Twin Peaks. And there's a lot of neighborhoods across the city. Edley is a huge fan of Airbnb. Ron Conway is a big investor in Airbnb and has skin in this game. If Airbnb in San Francisco is not stopped, but regulated, it's going to cost Ron Conway money. And Edley is on the other side, very clearly. He is on the other side of that Airbnb initiative. The second one is the Mission Moratorium. Right? The Mission Moratorium is, if you aren't familiar with this, the Mission Moratorium falls in my mind like the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. Right? The Mission Moratorium is about, let's not wreck things any more than we already have. Let's take a breather. I got it, 2 minutes. Let's take a breather and try to figure out a better way to preserve this neighborhood. All right? That is something that the mayor has not supported and is not going to support. Right? The third is District 3. Right? District 3, whatever you think of Aaron Peskin, some of you may have liked him as a supervisor, some of you may not have liked him. I didn't always agree with Aaron. Aaron Peskin versus Julie Christensen is a referendum on Edley's administration. Absolutely 100%. It's also will change the balance of power on the Board of Supervisors. I've been watching the Board of Supervisors meetings the last few months, and it's 6 to 5, 6 to 5, 6 to 5, on everything. On all the land use stuff, on all of the bad stuff, it's 6 to 5 the wrong way. District 3 would shift that, and they know it. So a lot of money is going in to keep Aaron Peskin from winning. That is a referendum on the mayor. So those three things are. The fourth one that you need to be aware of is there's this measure that PG&E put on the ballot to screw up Clean Power SF. It's called the, whatever, it's about, telling you what the city's doing. It's nonsense. It's put on by PG&E. The mayor ought to be out there today opposing this, raising money against it. It's his Clean Power SF. It's the city. It's his city that's getting screwed up by this. I have not heard word one out of the mayor's office. I have not seen $1 raised by the mayor in opposition to PG&E, because this is the mayor who went out there a couple of years and said, PG&E is a great company. Yeah. It is a great local company. Like Airbnb is a great local company. So we should bow and give fealty to all of these people. So, this fall, if you want to work on one of the campaigns for mayor of two of the people who are in the room here, that's great. But there are other ways also to express your feelings about the mayor, and it's Airbnb, the Mission Moratorium, D3. These are going to be close. These are going to be very close races, all of them. They're all going to be really important. And if we can say this fall, in what is going to be a low turnout election, 6,500 votes will change District 3. That's what we did. 6,500 votes will elect the next supervisor and determine the balance of power on the Board of Supervisors. That's not a lot. That's people knocking on doors. Right? We can do this, and if we can do this, we can send a message very loud and clear, even if we are not looking at either of my two colleagues here in the mayor's office, unfortunately, next year. We will still have the ability to say, we have made a statement in San Francisco that the way things are now is not acceptable. It is qualified. PG&E's union, IPEW 1245, raised the money and put this on the ballot. They were paying up to $4 a signature to get this thing on the ballot. People were coming from all over the state. Signature gatherers were coming from all over California. And they were lying to people. And they're saying this ensures accountability for government. And they, yeah, I mean, when you pay $4 a signature and you have unlimited money, things get on the ballot.
I was happy to see two young people on Valencia registering people to vote,
Yes.
which is great. But you're right, I'm afraid we're going to have a low voter turnout again, but hopefully not. Thank you, Tim. Our next speaker is Tommi Mecca. He's a longtime queer activist and housing rights, affordable housing advocate who's worked for the Housing Rights Committee of San Francisco for the past 15 years. He recently helped set up Jazzy's Place. It's a shelter for the LGBT community, and Marty's Place, a co-op for low-income and homeless people with AIDS. If you can, go online and search for Jazzy's Place because, well, Tommy's been posting some amazing articles on his Facebook page about the people who are going to Jazzy's Place. Tommi is also a singer and author of the book Smash the Church, Smash the State, the early years of gay liberation. Tommi.
Stand up, or they can't hear you tonight.
Oh, can you hear me without standing up?
Stand up.
Okay. Now I gotta hold my paper in my hand. When I consider the question at hand about how progressives can use the mayoral race, I have to think back to 1999, the Tom Amiano write-in campaign against incumbent Willie Brown. Gabriel Holland and I decided to draft Tom to run against Brown because the city was in the grips of, guess what? A housing crisis, the first dot-com boom, and Brown was doing absolutely nothing to help the folks being evicted and priced out of the city. In fact, Brown had said, if you don't earn $50,000, you shouldn't live in San Francisco. I'm not making that up. In other words, fuck the poor and the working class.
Fuck Brown.
After much coaxing, Tom jumped in at the last moment. And in 2 weeks, we got him into a runoff against Brown.
That's right.
Immediately, there was international attention on the race, and we used it to focus on housing issues and the changes that were happening to the city that were not positive. That campaign was actually centered in 2 neighborhoods, the Castro and the Mission. Tom didn't win, of course, but we turned local Democratic machine politics upside down. And we mobilized a lot of folks who had never been involved in politics before, creating a groundswell that resulted the following year in the election of a majority of progressives to the Board of Supervisors. That's not going to happen this year, unfortunately. As Tim said, I won't repeat what Tim said. Tim nailed it. It's not going to happen this year. What I think we need to do, though, to bring attention to our issues is what we did in May and June. We need to bring people to City Hall and make our demands known loud and clear. On May 8th, we brought 1,000 people, most of them from the Mission, to City Hall to demand that the city do something about the affordability crisis. We knocked on the mayor's door, and guess what? He couldn't be bothered to open it. On June 2nd, we brought 800 people to the hearing on the proposed moratorium. A group of black ministers led the contingent that went to the mayor's office, knocking on his door again. And guess what? He didn't open it again. But that didn't mean he didn't hear us. Within weeks of those 2 events, the mayor announced that his housing bond is going to include $50 million for affordable housing in the Mission. And that 490 South Van Ness, right up the street from where I work, has now been purchased by the city and will be 72 units of affordable housing for families in the Mission, instead of the luxury condos that were proposed for that site. Meanwhile, the Planning Commission has come up for a proposal for interim controls that is actually a very, very watered-down version of our moratorium. That was the result of our repeatedly going to the Planning Commission and telling them that we didn't want luxury developments such as 490 South Van Ness, and because word has gotten back to the commissioners that we have shut down the last 3 community meetings that developers have held in the Mission. We shut them down. And believe just like myself. That was families. That was teenagers. That was young people. That was teachers and union workers and the people who live in the mission. They shut them down.
Okay.
These concessions from the mayor's office and the planning commissioner are not enough. See? It's not enough. It's not enough. 72 units of housing at 15th and South Van Ness is nothing, right? And these interim controls are nothing. $50 million will not buy much affordable housing. But it shows that we had an impact, okay? But we're not going to stop until we stop the Mission and the Monster at 16th and Mission and the Beast on Bryan in the 200,000 block of Bryan Street. What it shows is that people power can work. We need more direct action. We need to show up at their offices. We need to do more of these kinds of things during this mayoral election. We need to put the mayor and his administration on the spot. Debates aren't going to cut it. We need to shame this administration publicly, which is what we did on May 2nd when we brought those 800 people. Because as I said, we brought people from the mission, ordinary people, ordinary laborers, family members. Imagine if the Haight and Soma and the Castro and Chinatown and North Beach did the same thing. What if they all brought 1,000 people from their neighborhoods to City Hall and made the same demands that they want a moratorium in their neighborhood and they want nothing but 100% affordable housing in their neighborhood? Imagine. But this is what we as progressives have to do because the electoral political system does not work. In fact, the reality is that the system, period, does not work. It's broken. It only works for the rich. We know that. We've known that. We can't have illusions about the system. We can't band-aid it, which is what we constantly do. As much as I support the moratorium and the Airbnb regs, the reality is they don't go far enough. We need to do more. What we need to do is be relentless. We need to not let the decision makers, whether it's the Board of Supervisors or the planning commissioners, off the hook until they give us what we need to stop the evictions, to stop gentrification, to be self-sufficient with living wage jobs, affordable housing, and health care for all, and safety nets that guarantee that we remain self-sufficient. We need to call out this city and force it to deal with class issues and economic justice as a human right. As I said, we can't rely on the politicians, no matter how left-wing they are, no matter how great the rhetoric is. We have to rely on ourselves. We are the power, not City Hall and not the politicians. These issues are bigger than this mayoral race. These issues are bigger than ballot measures. These issues are about taking back our city. These issues are about taking back the land in this city. And we do that via vehicles like the Community Land Trust and co-ops. We do it by taking the land off of the free market because the free market only benefits the rich.
Reduce, limit property taxes, huh?
And how the hell did the real estate people get control of the land? They don't own the land, it's not theirs. The land belongs to all of us and none of us, okay? And we got to take it back. We have to take back our right to health care, to food, to be self-sufficient. We need to confront the beast that is greed and speculation and luxury housing. Otherwise, the politicians will continue to placate us, and the system will become more and more about the 1% and less about the rest of us. Thank you.